But, especially because I am employed now, anything that I provide is not a substitute for legal advice. No attorney-client relationship is formed, and certainly the views expressed are not my firm's. So I don't know if any of you, I think one of you, were you at the last event that I did? You may or may not have been.
No, I was not.
So in the fall, I came here for Open Law 1.0, design on this one 2.0, and I focused my talk on the different laws involving employment discrimination. So some of them are ADEA, relevant to our group, the Age Discrimination Employment Act, which protects workers over 40 from being discriminated based on age, ADA, which protects workers with disabilities, FMLA, which enables workers to take 12 weeks of unpaid leave, bond with new baby, adopt a child, employees medical leave, die of spouse, aging parents. Title VII prohibits discrimination based on race, religion, national origin, sex, etc. It's going to go a little slow. So now we're at the interview. We've done our homework, right? We've done research. We've researched targeted companies. We've made cold calls. We've had informational interviews. We've done all those things, right? Now, and we've crafted resumes and cover letters. We've networked. We finally scored that interview. Great. Now it's time to prepare for that interview. So you should have two lists of questions ready. One should be a list of questions that you should ask. One should be a list of questions they may ask. Among the questions they may ask are probably going to be at least a few illegal questions. And so it's important to learn how to answer them the correct way. Legal questions. A little graphic. A couple questions are illegal. Relevant for us, I think. Age, number one. Medical information. I can't believe height and weight is actually asked, but apparently it is. I've gotten the race, ethnicity, color, gender, or sex. I imagine nowadays that might be even more interesting given transgender and everything, non-binary and all those other terms that I'm still understanding. Citizenship, which is kind of an odd question to ask. I think they try to make it ethnicity, but somehow it ends up being citizenship. Religion, disability, marital, family status, pregnancy. Pregnancy Discrimination Act also is another thing to keep in mind.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
Are there some instances where it's okay, like citizenship, some government positions, because security, you have to be a U.S. citizen, right? So that there are exceptions?
So
is that
there are
right?
exceptions, and if it's a bona fide occupational qualification, so it's like necessary to the job, then yes, they can probably ask that. But usually they'll ask that beforehand, not at the interview. So at the application stage,
right.
You'll have to fill out the application, and that'll be the question, right? Usually you'll get a question of, are you legally authorized to work in the country? That's when they're asking, not really necessarily citizenship, but more like your status, your residency in the country. So that's where that's taken care of. And I actually go into that in the presentation, that there are times that it is totally okay. What's really important to keep in mind, really, when you're trying to answer these questions is, what are the employers thinking? What are they thinking about? What's on their mind? What's their concern? With older workers, what they're concerned about are a few things. The stereotypical mindset is older workers are more expensive, right? Older workers will cost more. They'll expect higher salaries. They'll expect more benefits, right? Because older workers are more experienced. They know how to negotiate better than younger folks, hopefully. Time off requests. Older workers are what we call the sandwich generation, right? You have to have aging parents, likely, that you need to take care of. You have young children that you need to take care of, so you're kind of caught in the middle between both.
I was in that situation for a while.
Right, and that's why FMLA is something I covered in the last presentation, because that's where FMLA is beneficial. Older workers are more likely than younger workers to have medical issues and disability. That can affect their ability to work. So I pulled a list of sample illegal questions, and I actually have speaker notes on the presentation itself that will give you the link where this came from. But these are some actual illegal questions that are asked. How old are your children? This one, what arrangements are you going to make for your child care while you work? That's borderline illegal. Borderline because they're asking about child care. But not so illegal because what they're asking me is your ability to work. So that's one of those grayer areas. This one, are you a citizen? This one, what does your wife or husband do for a living? I don't really understand the where did you live while you were growing up. The will you get personal time off for particular religious holidays, that's another gray area. It's the hot button issue that comes up at the Supreme Court a lot, right? All those Sunday requests, right? Well, that's more because they're trying to figure out scheduling conflicts. So that's kind of more grayer area. This one, are you comfortable working for a female boss? That can go either way, I think. If you've had some issues with that in the past, especially in the Me Too movement that we're in now, it can go either way, I think. So I don't know how accurate this sample list of illegal questions is. The large disparity between your age and that of physicians' coworkers, again, that's kind of a gray area. Because that's a relevant thing, like, workplace fit. Are you going to fit in the company culture? That's a genuine concern, because then if you're not going to, you're more likely to leave. And then the employer has now wasted time, money, energy, training. And that can be expensive.
It's almost less that the employer's trying to screen you out as like, do you feel comfortable? It's like we don't feel comfortable with you. It's like, do you feel comfortable with us?
Exactly.
Yeah. And in many instances, and I know as a former public school administrator, K through 12, you don't even need to ask this illegal question as to the age disparity. You just look simply at the individual in terms of their physical features. And then you think about it in terms of your budget. Okay, your budget. It's like, well, this person, okay, has years of experience. Okay, it's more salary that is coming out of our budget. And hey, this person doesn't even look in very good health. Maybe I shouldn't hire him or her.
And that kind of perception, that stereotype, of course, can lead to some issues down the road.
Why did you live while growing up? Illegal question.
It can be illegal because it's not just one of those friendly, getting to know you questions. It can also be fishing for residency, for citizenship. So, for example, if you say that, oh, where I lived was in another country, well, now that's leading to the question of, gee, are you a citizen? Are you a permanent resident? Are you on a visa? Like, granted, those questions should have already been cleared up at the application stage anyway.
But in my case, if I was born here, how would that be illegal?
Again, there's that concern of discrimination, of the possibility of hiring someone who's, quote, from here versus someone who's perceived to not be from here.
I get it.
So, like, I can always answer that question with New Jersey, but very few people ever believe me. The assumption and presumption is that I'm a foreigner.
That's because you're from New Jersey, that's why.
I wish, but unfortunately that's not the case.
Good place to be from.
Sorry about
I can say
that,
I'm from
Ron.
New York. I mean, that's where I was born, but every time
Ron
I say
and
New York,
Benita.
no one believes me. Granted, I don't have your accents, maybe that's why they don't believe me, but, unfortunately, it's the fact that the presumption is that I am a foreigner, even though I was born in New York. And yeah, you can be discriminated against for age, for looking really young too.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I do not look anywhere near my age. I look at least 10 years younger. And I'm well aware of that. When people ask me my age, I tell them, they're like, no, I can't quite be. And I'm like, yeah, let me show you my ID.
Wow.
So there's that. Some of the illegal questions about age. So how old are you? What year were you born? When did you graduate from college? Which is kind of interesting because college nowadays, you don't necessarily go to college right away. It is possible to be
Right,
a
yeah.
mature student graduating later in life.
They've been in their 40s when they got their degree here, so.
So even that one, I think, is going to start changing a little bit. How many years of experience do you have? Have you kept your skills up to date and fresh? Are you familiar with this latest technology? Now you might be wondering, and if you notice what I wrote, the last thing, a few of these are actually legal to ask, as it is pertinent to answer. So as we ask you all, what do you think is actually legal?
A question about technology.
Yeah.
What else could be legal? There's more. There's a couple more.
I mean, how many years of experience do you have?
I would think keeping your skills up
Yeah,
would be important in almost
Yeah.
every field.
All three of them are actually quite legal to ask, depending on the context.
Or would it be?
It could be pertinent. The one that would be the gray area would be how many years of experience do you have? That could be kind of a gray area.
So I guess if you phrase it like, oh, this job requires at least 5 years experience, do you have that?
Exactly, and that's the classic
Okay.
example.
Okay.
That's perfectly fine because it's pertinence.
Where would it be wrong to ask
What
that
would be
question?
wrong would be if they don't quantify it by you have to have 5 years experience, etc. So they literally are just like, how many years do you have? As in, you seem like you've been in this field for a while.
You get 47 years experience?
Exactly. To answer or not, that is the question. See what I did over there? To be or not to be. How to handle the age-related questions. You've got a few choices. You can avoid answering, but you're probably not going to get the job. You can inform the interviewer that the question is illegal, but you'll probably not get the job either. Or you can answer the question. Some say you should just own your age. Talk positively about being older, such as I'm 45, never felt younger. 50 and fabulous. You can go another route and say with confidence that you have less experience than necessary, but this is what you have. You can similar to the last one, you can accentuate the positive. You can show why your age is an asset. So if it's really clear, either from your resume or your appearance, that you're probably older than maybe the average applicant, generally don't try to hide it, but instead show some confidence. Show why it's actually a plus instead of a negative. One of the biggest concerns from employers with older applicants, your willingness to learn new skills. So I recently mastered this piece of technology. One fear employers have in hiring older workers is that they're set in their ways or have difficulty learning new skills. So I'm used to doing this way. This is the way I'm going to do it. I don't really want to do it this way. My way is better. The way I've been doing this for all these years is much efficient, much better, etc. That's what employers are worried about. Is this someone who can actually do away with that mentality and be flexible and be willing to learn new technology? You can also ask them, why is the question relevant? And what they really want to know. You definitely want to avoid getting confrontational if you choose to educate and inform the interviewer that the question violates ADEA and Title VII. The reality is a lot of interviewers just are not good at interviewing. Many are not very well prepared. Sometimes you can actually see that. Many times they barely have seen your resume, and you can catch that right away. You can see that they're like looking like, oh wait, let me see what little bits I can quickly glance.
And that might lead to, so how many years experience do you have? Because they haven't had a chance to add it all up yet.
Exactly. So you have to kind of be forgiving almost and have some grace towards the interviewer and just let them know, like, you know, maybe you weren't aware, but this is actually not appropriate or this is actually illegal, but what is it that you're trying to ask me? And see if you can work together and figure it out.
Because some of the people, they don't know how to phrase a question that gets to their concern.
Right.
And so if you find out what is your concern, then, oh, well, I can tell you this, and that actually answers it better than just answering your question.
And in fact, by actually educating them in the right way, they might be more inclined to look at you more favorably and remember you in a more positive way. Age-related legal questions. Will this position be challenging for you? This gets behind their fear of, are you overqualified? Because that's the first thing they're going to think. Oh, you're overqualified. Answer by explaining how challenging you expect the role to be, how you're up for the challenge. So think about the role ahead of time. If you know deep down in your heart that this is something that may not be the top job of your choice, but it's more of, I need it, I have to take it. You might feel that it's a little beneath you because you've been in a more senior role. Don't show that, but show that you're ready to find a way to make it challenging for you, that you won't get bored. Because that's their main concern. Are you going to be bored?
Mm-hmm.
One thing that older workers find helpful is to highlight the opportunity to mentor younger or less experienced workers. A lot of employees are fresh out of school. How do you feel about this? So this is something you'll find, especially in a more youth cultured environment, say a startup company, technology companies, right? Those are very youth driven. And so, again, it comes back to workplace fit. If these are all people in their 20s and they're talking about going out to parties and bar crawls and all that, how much are you really going to have in common with that, right? So the real question is, are you going to fit in with a group of younger employees? Again, show your enthusiasm for being the senior member of the team. And then highlight the benefits of working as part of a diverse team. You know, they can learn from you. At the same time, you're going to learn from them. And you are going to learn from them. There's a lot that younger people know that, frankly, older people do not know. Even early 40s and late 30s, there's a lot that people just do not know. There's a lot of language that you're just like, wait, what are you saying?
Well, in some settings, even interviewing for a position in your late 30s, early 40s means that you are old within that cultural workplace.
Yeah. I've been at my firm for the last couple of years, and among the contractors, there are some that are like recent grads, like recent law grads. So they're in their early, mid-20s. And half the time I'm Googling what they're saying.
Oh.
I'm like, wait, what's this slang? I don't know this. I'll have someone who's maybe a few years younger than me. He'll be like, wait, what was that term? And it's amazing how, like, even him in his early 30s, he's often lost. It's hilarious. And then when we make references to stuff in like the 90s or like the early 2000s, it's like, oh wait, this is before your time. It's pretty funny. Questions about family. It's illegal to ask if you have children or grandchildren or about marital status, but it is legal to ask if you can travel frequently if the job requires it. Because what they're really trying to find out is, do you have family obligations that prevent you from working, from making the travel commitments? So say a job that has a 50%, 75% travel requirement, will you be able to actually fulfill that? It's legal to ask if you can regularly come into work because of job attendance policies. That's totally permissible. They can't ask you, for example, if you can come in or if you can't come in because of your child's, soccer game, or like you have to leave early because of parent-teacher conferences or something like that. But they can ask, are you regularly to come to work? It's amazing how many times that people aren't aware that it is illegal to ask about marital status. But apparently, people are not aware of that. It actually is illegal to ask about marital status. Now, it's weird because on the application form, you get always Mr., Ms., whatever, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you'll always have those comments of, like, what is your marital status? But yeah, at the actual interview, you cannot ask that.
Wow. Now, does it become a fair topic for discussion if I happen to bring up, my wife was telling me this or that, and then, okay, he knows I'm married. Is it then permissible to talk about any of that, or is that still, even if I brought it up, it's still, they shouldn't be doing anything with that, or?
If you brought it up, you brought it up, but they still really should not be, just because you opened the door.
Okay.
But if you brought it up, now it is going to be fair game to ask questions that are relevant.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Okay.
about things such as plans to start a family.
That sounds borderline.
Mm-hmm.
It could be illegal.
So that is borderline. But with their question, so they can't ask you directly, are you starting a family? Or do you plan on having children? They can't ask that. But they can ask, what are your future plans? What they're asking is your level of commitment.
Okay. So, Benita, let's look at a scenario in which a woman's interviewing for a position and she is 6 months pregnant. Okay. What question is legal for the interviewer to ask relative to commitment to staying in the position?
So unfortunately, at that point, you can't exactly hide the fact that you're pregnant unless you're one of the lucky women who don't show even at that late age. Because of the Pregnancy Discrimination Act, you cannot bring up pregnancy. I actually did research this one. And yep, the answer was very clear. You cannot bring up anything related to pregnancy. Cannot. Absolutely 100% forbidden. You cannot ask specifically because you're pregnant. So it can't be, oh, I see that you're expecting. Cannot bring up the fact and cannot acknowledge that you see that that person is pregnant. Nope. Cannot.
No.
There was a time that women get fired if they were pregnant.
And that's why the
My mom
Pregnancy
told me
Discrimination
about
Act
that.
is in place to prohibit that. Nope. Lots of women, even while being 5-6 months pregnant, are actually still job searching because Pregnancy Discrimination Act does prohibit the discrimination, and they know it. And therefore, they cannot ask that question. And employers mostly are aware of that.
Now, is it permissible, like, if the nature of the project is like, in 3 months, we've got this major conference we need to go present at or something, and we're gonna need everybody to, can they ask,
They can ask in that sense, but they
Okay.
can't say, because of your pregnancy.
Right, okay.
Or they can't say, well, when are you due? When do you expect to?
Are you gonna be
deliver?
able to participate this,
Mhm.
and participate in this?
They
Okay.
can't say, well, I see that you're pregnant. Do you plan on taking maternity leave?
Or how much?
Or how much? Do you plan on working part-time for, they cannot ask any of those questions. So the way around it would
No.
be just to show commitment and ask about long-term opportunities for growth.
If they wanted to emphasize that our company will actually has benefits where you can work from home or something like that. Can they work that in? Is like, I see you're pregnant. Well, you might want to know that we can.
Nope.
You
they
can work from
cannot.
home during your or whatever. And,
They cannot even acknowledge that they
Okay.
see that someone is pregnant. Like everything I researched on this one was very clear. Answer, no.
What what if they need an employer right away?
An employee, right?
An employee. The employer needs an employee right away. They need someone to commit. Someone that's, I'm not saying that it's wrong that it's right to discriminate against women that are pregnant. I think it's wrong, but they see the lady is pregnant. She's not going to be able to commit. She's going to have the child and need maternity leave, but we really need someone many months down the road.
For the next
this
4 to
job.
6 months.
Yeah,
it's
we
gonna
really
be
need
nonstop
someone.
or something,
That's making a presumption of that woman's ability to work, and so then that would actually be
But
illegal.
could you say that
Yeah,
the
but-
nature of this position is that for the next 4 to 6 months, we're going to be pretty much constant
Now, if it's
availability?
something-
Do you see any,
If it's
anything that would prevent you
something-
Let's
from?
say management is.
Now, that's a different story. What you just went, how
What
you
do you
just
say-
phrased
what do you
it
say,
is
Ron?
definitely
Do you see anything that would
different.
prevent you from being able to
Okay.
participate?
Something like that. If it's something like that, or, we're gonna need someone to travel by plane,
Right, yeah.
next few months, would you be able to? That's kind of borderline in a way, because you're really kind of hinting towards that, hey, are you gonna get to the second trimester, third trimester, that's kind of a little bit gray in a way. But if it's job related, that's a different story.
They could basically state the requirement of the job and
Sure.
ask, are you able to meet that requirement?
Without
Okay.
acknowledging. It's the same with
Okay.
disability. Without acknowledging.
I wouldn't say all the employers are better. Some well-intentioned management's like, we don't want to discriminate. We want to be careful with this, but we do need someone 4 to 6 months down the road. Yeah. Just a thought.
It's a fair thought.
Yeah.
And the way to get around it is just to show commitment and ask about long-term opportunities without taking any promises. And by the way, this question doesn't just pertain and go to women. More and more companies do have paternity leave
Mhm.
policies in place. So that question can also be equally thrown at male applicants,
Right.
just the same. Medical issues and disability. Employer's underlying concern is whether the prospective employee can handle the job. It is illegal to ask if an interviewee has a medical condition or about a disability, even when it is apparent. So, classic case of an interviewee walking with a cane or in a wheelchair. Cannot bring it up. It is, however, legal and permissible to ask if the interviewee would be able to do the job with or without reasonable accommodations. If ADA even applies. Remember, ADA 90 does not apply to entities if they do not have at least 15 employees. ADA, the common misconception seems to be that ADA 90 applies across the board, and that's not the case, unfortunately. It is legal to require a medical exam only if all other employees have to undergo one. So you cannot have a scenario, a situation where you perceive that a prospective employee has some sort of medical issue and you insist on that individual undergoing a medical exam, but you don't require the same with all other applicants and other employees. That is outright discrimination. Religion and politics. Kind of timely, right?
Yes.
This is a common case that you hear about a lot in the Supreme Court, right? Questions about church on Sundays. The Sunday closing rules, all that kind of stuff. It's illegal to ask if you go to church on Sundays. But it is legal to ask if you can work on specific days. The purpose of the question is to determine the availability of work. So this is something you probably see a lot in retail, for example, right?
Mhm.
Because they're usually Monday through Sunday or Sunday through Saturday, however you want to put it. You can't ask what faith you observe or about spirituality. You can't say, are you Christian? What sect are you? Are you a Muslim? Are you Hindu? Are you Buddhist? Are you an atheist? Or do you believe in anything? But the exception is faith-based organizations. And that seems kind of common sense, right? They're faith-based, so they would expect people to adhere to their beliefs. This is rather kind of really timely, right? Can I ask about political affiliation? Did you vote for Trump? Who'd you vote for in the primary? You can bet that workplaces across the country have been very, very careful the last several years. And certainly this week, that was probably a very hot button water cooler topic, right? Not really. A lot of workplaces have instituted policies where you really cannot discuss politics at work, even when senior members of the organization may be outright openly stating who they support.
It's interesting you brought this. I saw it yesterday on the internet, on Google, that this Hollywood guy is not getting hired because he voted for Trump. I'm just putting a fact out there. I'm not saying I'm one way or another. And they just refuse to work with him. That sounds like a discrimination. He's no longer working in Hollywood now. He owns his construction company.
That's interesting.
But that
Unfortunately,
that sounds like
political
deliberate
views,
discrimination.
Political beliefs is not a class that's protected.
It's not.
It's not.
Can I ask about political affiliation?
Can I ask
don't know
about
if
that?
you
But
can.
it's not a protected class.
It's not. Okay.
Right.
They just can't ask you how you vote.
They can't ask you how you vote. To your point, that you had brought up earlier on,
Okay.
but some illegal questions are legally asked later. And this is where it gets kind of confusing. Questions about race, ethnicity, national origin, and citizenship. You've all seen those optional questionnaires for statistical purposes, right?
Oh, okay.
Those voluntary surveys, that say that even if you don't fill it out, it's not going to be counted against you or held against you. They're illegal to ask at the interview, but they are part of optional questionnaires. These questions come up at the I-9 stage, post-interview, right? When you are actually hired. I just filled out an I-9, so I can tell you. They have the whole authorization to work. It's because they're verifying whether you're legally authorized to work. At the interview stage, it's totally permissible to ask whether someone's legally authorized to work. And that's because even at the application, if they've somehow forgotten to, they want to make sure, do we need to sponsor this person? They're not asking it purportedly to discriminate, but literally it's a business decision. A lot of companies are finding that the visas do cost a lot of money. Know your rights when asking a legal question. Employers cannot retaliate if you lie to answer illegal questions. It's not suggested. I certainly don't recommend anyone to lie. But some people handle illegal questions by lying. Get a written copy of the question. And if you can't, write it down, document it in some way. If you want to report the employer, you can contact your nearest EEOC office. You can also dodge the question or answer. And if you are hired, despite either dodging the question or answering it incorrectly or by lying, you can keep a copy of any discriminatory questions that they may be the basis of legal claims if you're later fired. And this has happened, where you are asked a legal question, you still kind of find a way to answer it, and then later they find out something and they try to terminate you based on that, and now you can just have that documentation ready to say, actually, by the way, you asked these illegal questions. And it's time to practice. Time to practice answering some questions. So what would be a good answer to how old are you?
say, so, maybe I don't understand the position, well, how is age an important factor in this position or something like that?
I'm old enough to do this job effectively.
Yeah,
I like that. Me, I was thinking, why do you ask? This is a true story. This actually happened to me. So way back when, like well over a decade ago now, hard to believe, I was interviewing for a job, the law clerk for a judge who was African American. For whatever reason, he asked me where my parents are from. And I remember cringing inwardly, oh, Judge, you're asking me an illegal question. I don't remember exactly how I answered it. I think I tried dodging the question. Or I may have tried to say something like, they're from here. I think I may have actually asked, like, why are you asking? So I think I went with the direct approach. I was hired, but I don't think that's the reason. How would you answer, do you have children? One approach is none of your business.
yeah.
But I don't think that would
That's
go-
on my mind.
I don't think that would go
I want to
well.
answer it in a way that still qualifies me, or still leaves a path for employment open.
I think I would answer it
Yeah.
something like, if I had children, I actually don't, but if I did, I do, but they're old enough that
Yeah.
they won't be taking time away from work.
Or dodging it might be, is there's nothing in my personal life that would interfere with my
That's
being available to.
Perfect. That's absolutely perfect.
Can you go back? I'm taking notes. Where are you from? What's the best way to answer that?
You know, there's multiple ones. Some people have laughed and they'll be like, oh, I'm from California. Other people might say, you know, either from where they're from or how is this relevant to the position. That's another way around it. So you kind of
What did you tell the
pivot
judge
back to that.
when he asked the question about your parents?
I actually don't really remember. I think I either tried to dodge it or I think I directly said, like, how is this relevant?
Okay, I thought.
Apparently he was trying to connect minority. He realized I was a minority.
Yeah, some questions are just, like, I just want to have a conversation with you, and not necessarily.
And that's
try
what
to-
it was.
Yeah.
He really was just trying to form a connection. And he figured that would be the best way of going about it. That is something we had in common, right? We were both minorities. How would you answer, will you need to take time off?
I'll take time off, based upon need.
Yeah, that's a great way to answer that one.
Statistically, the employees who take advantage of the time available off are better performers.
That's another great one. Another one would be, I don't foresee the need to take any time off anytime soon.
Yeah. And to have the answers ready, so you're not fumbling there.
Yes.
This is part of your
Yeah.
practice before the interview.
Mhm.
So have a list of questions that you need to ask them and you want to ask them, and also have a list of questions that they can probably ask of you. And always be prepared for any illegal question, because you know 9 out of 10 times, at least one question will be illegal. My own statistic, not research driven, it's just common sense type of thing, knowing that at least fairly high chance that you will get asked an illegal question. And you know, sometimes they're asking that because they aren't aware of the law. Sometimes they're asking because they're testing you.
Oh.
Are you going to be able to think quick on your feet?
Mhm.
How do you handle the pressure? Are you someone who can be creative? Are you someone who's going to get confrontational
Yeah.
when put in an uncomfortable position? So these are kind of behavioral, personality, psychological questions in some ways.
And if I flush out something that I can't ask about that, look how they responded.
It'll tell you more about your personality.
Yeah.
Any questions?
I think there's one question that we missed. Will this position be
Yeah,
challenging
I
enough
have
for you?
Yes, but I can do it effectively.
Tell me more.
Yes, but I can do this job effectively for X, Y, Z. Or I have this, that. I can do it.
This will be challenging because of technology I haven't used very often.
Yeah.
Although we want to be kind of careful with that because then that raises that other question you still have,
Well,
right?
I mean, you could point out that there are different challenges in different areas.
Right.
And he might be concerned, is the work itself challenging? He says, well, I'll be meeting a whole group of people, I'll be learning to work well with them and how to fit into culture and emphasize those challenges.
Say you're willing to learn a new technology that you haven't had. I've used this technology, but I'm willing to learn it.
Or these are challenges that
Yeah.
the position has that I've never actually confronted before.
And I work with you, that's a big challenge right there.
I don't know if I answered that way. Any questions?
You pointed out, a lot of times, they don't know the legal, and I can't imagine if we didn't have seminars like this, how would the people take care of you know that? It's like, we don't keep up with all these various laws. I guess most of them exist just as, if something's already gone wrong, these are the actions you would take rather than actually preventing anything.
I've been asking legal questions, some of the stuff, by a hostile interviewer. And I was told after the fact, was, how did this go? It's like, yeah, he asked illegal questions, or not relevant. But I didn't want to work there.
So in that case, it worked out well for you.
Yeah.
It
But
did.
if you knew that you didn't want to work there anyway. But,
I would have wanted to call him out on his behavior.
and some people take that approach,
Yeah.
but then word gets out. And so you may become known for that. And then eventually you can get blackballed, unfortunately. So calling out usually isn't the best approach. The approach that I would take
Yeah,
would be
I didn't do that, but-
document. And if you want to report it, you absolutely can, as long as you have documentation. If it's a he said, she said type of scenario, then it'll be very hard to prove. But if you have documentation,
Pull out your phone, could you repeat that again for the?
Sure. well, you gotta be careful with that too.
I know,
You can't
I would-
record.
yeah.
So some people try to
I
record.
could write it down, the date and time, this interview happened on this date,
Sure.
at this time.
You
and this is
can
what was said.
record if it's a
Not
state
record.
that has one party consent.
Hmm.
If it's a state that requires two-party consent, you cannot record. But if it's a one-party consent state, then fair game.
Gotta know the laws.
Gotta know the laws.
Yeah.
Exactly.
But you can write it down, you can
You can write it down.
date and time and what was said.
Sure.
Yeah, that's the best approach.
Probably in most cases, if it's blatant.
You could even send a thank you note, and you could even print that out. That's another way of doing it.
Thank
In
you
your
for having
thank you
me in.
note, Thank you for having me in. This is what.
But this question you asked is an illegal question.
This way, you have a timestamp, and you have it in your email. You have it in the sent box.
Right.
Now you have actual documentation.
But probably, I would think in most cases, if it's blatant illegal questions, it's just like, I think this is telling me I should avoid.
Sure.
This company is not a place I would want to feel comfortable working in.
And you can
Which
even
I
reach
did.
out to superiors of that individual. And you can say, you know, I'm really interested in this role, but I have some concerns because of how this interview just went. You can even do that.
Reach out to who?
Anyone above that individual in the organization that you interviewed at. You can do that.
So of course, an employee cannot ask legally if you have children, but if the employer stated that, look, as part of the benefits, we have childcare services on the premises. Would that be a lead-in about an inquiry about children, or would it still be illegal?
It could be, but typically, if it's a first round interview, it would be rare to mention anything about benefits.
Okay.
And if they are mentioning benefits, I would be a little concerned that they're mentioning that quickly.
Or unless they really want you, and
Yeah.
they're making assumptions and they're trying to entice you with it. We've got some things that you might really appreciate.
Sometimes
They can't say, oh, you know, we have these child, you know, we have a daycare on site, for example. Would you be interested in that? How many, you know, they can maybe say, would you be interested in that? But they can't say, how many children would you be enrolling or something
Right.
like that.
Right.
That they cannot do. They can say, these are the benefits we have. You know, my organization, for example, has cancer benefits, which I had never heard of. Cancer benefits. They
Separate.
can't say,
Separate from health.
separate from health insurance, we have cancer benefits.
That's interesting.
It's really interesting, but they can't go around and say, hey, if you have cancer, this is something. They can't say at the interview stage, hey, we have cancer benefits. Would you be interested in that? They can just say, these are the benefits we have.
stated broadly.
Stated broadly, making no presumptions about anyone and anyone's needs. Any questions?
Well, thank you, Benita.
Thank you.
It was a very
Good job.
Thank you.
quick